Now, do you happen to have any model trains that you don't use anymore? Or maybe some other kind of model pieces for landscapes, buildings, or people that would fit into that picture? If you do, my next guest, Alan Jennison, editor and publisher of Western Echo, is seeking them out because he has a project happening in Zeehan. He's building a diorama of the West Coast, but not just of Zeehan and not just how it looks today. I have Alan here to explain it in a bit more detail. Good morning, Alan.
Good morning, Lucy. How are you?
Very well, thanks. How's the weather in your part of Tasmania today?
It's beautiful and sunny, 24 degrees, as it always is in the West Coast. No, that's not true. It's beautiful and sunny. Let's stop at that.
Okay, it's probably a nice fog in the morning. I always enjoy that. Now,
Yeah.
Alan, what made you want to undertake building a diorama of the West Coast?
Okay, it's not just one diorama. I've got an old supermarket building that I'm converting in the front part of it, at least, into the history of the West Coast in miniature. Something I've always been interested in is the history, and the more research I did in the West Coast history, the more I realised it was very much led and driven on the back of trains. So this is turning into quite a train set, I suppose, in the shop as well.
It sounds like it's kind of slowly unfolding as people contribute pieces and you find pieces as well. Are there particular areas of the West Coast that you are focusing on or a part of history?
It's going to be a bit of a timeline. I'm going to start with the Indigenous history. That will go through to the convicts landing on Sarah Island, go through all the mining, the logging, the pining, right through to the present day. So I'm after a bit of everything, really.
It sounds it. What have you managed to build so far?
All right, in the front window of my shop, which you can see from outside as you walk past, is a 7.5 metre long G-scale model of the Spray Mine and Spray Tunnel, which is just out of Zeehan. That grabs your eye as soon as you walk past. It's large trains, it's ore carriages, and I've built dioramas of osmiridium mining at Waratah. There's another one which is probably somewhere around the Tulla area, a fairly generic mining scene at the Tulla area. I'm building a circus scene because the circus used to drop into the West Coast every couple of years. Everything. Anything that could be West Coast history is going in here.
Is there a part that you are really looking forward to building?
All of it. I've been told many times by a lot of people that I have a head full of squirrels, so this suits me perfectly. One day I could be working on the spray mine, another day I could be painting little figures for the gold mining. It varies so much. This sort of, I'm all over the place with it, but it is coming together very nicely. I hope to have something open probably mid-October.
Beautiful. This is Alan Jennison, editor, publisher of Western Echo. We're talking about a model of the West Coast throughout time that Alan is building. Alan, I did mention that you are seeking parts as well. So tell me a bit more about what people could potentially contribute to this project of yours.
Look, Lucy, there are a lot of people that have old train sets and old trains and models sitting in their sheds or their attics or whatever, just gathering dust. They may have been their fathers or their grandfathers or whatever. I'm after those if I can get hold of them. As many train pieces and as many bits and pieces as I can. I've built up quite a collection already. I've thrown a lot of money and tied into this. And I'm always after more bits and pieces that I can use or adapt.
And when you say that you're after train tracks and trains and pieces that might need to potentially fit together, does it matter what size they are?
No, it doesn't. I'm running everything from figures that are about 2.5 centimetres tall to figures that are about 9 centimetres tall. Just to give an idea of the scale, it doesn't really matter. I've got all sorts of scales and sizes in here.
This is all taking place in a supermarket, as you mentioned, an empty supermarket that you've converted to this West Coast experience throughout time. What's it been like working on it as people walk by? Can people actually look in and see what you're doing or perhaps even drop in for a chat?
People can certainly wander past the window. Everybody stops. Everybody seems to love model trains, people of every age. I've probably had dozens and dozens and dozens of people either ring the bell or tap on the window when they've seen me in there working, and I give them a sneak preview. just take people around and show them what I'm doing.
You've even had the Premier drop by, I understand.
I did, yes. Yes, Jeremy Rockcliffe got in for a bit of a play with the trains. The next day, Felix Ellis dropped in. It's getting some coverage. It's getting some attention, I think. And I think it'll be a pretty wonderful thing for the West Coast.
Alan Jennison here, editor-publisher of the Western Echo, building a pretty incredible, it sounds like, Alan, pretty incredible diorama model of West Coast throughout time. Alan, you didn't grow up on the West Coast, so tell me about what it's been like finding out about the history of the area.
Look, I've been a tour guide in many places around Tasmania, Port Arthur and Richmond and that sort of thing, and I've always had a fascination with the history. And when I moved to the West Coast and started up the newspaper 2 years ago, I very soon sort of discovered a lot more of the history of the West Coast and thought, I need to do something with this and show it to the people.
And when is the next edition of the Western Echo out?
The Western Echo comes out monthly. It's the second Friday of every month. It comes out this one next Friday.
For people who... Oh, you go on.
Sorry, it's not just, it covers the West Coast, but it's also distributed through all the northwest towns and all the supermarkets up there.
Beautiful. And for people who are hoping to check out the diorama at some point, I think you mentioned October is when you're hoping for the public to be able to access it. Is that right?
I'm hoping it will be mid-October. It won't be finished. It will never, ever be finished. This will be phase 1 that will be open. Then I'll be starting on phase 2, finishing off phase 1. And phase 3 is going to take up a lot of the supermarket. It's going to be absolutely huge, but that's probably 2 years down the track.
What will phase 3 be? What's so big about that?
Well, phase 3 there'll be a huge model of what was the third largest railway complex in Tasmania, and that was in Zeehan. I think that was 10 railway tracks wide. It was a huge, huge railway station.
Wow.
And very, very busy. So that will be part of phase 3.
For people who would like to get in touch, offer up items, how do they get in touch, Alan?
All right. Either my phone number, would you like my phone number? It's 0488 278 299.
And
or they can email me if they wish, alan@westernecho.news.
And if people would like to drop by and help out, is that something they can do as well?
That's a tricky one. I've had a few people offer to help. I'm going to get the schools involved, actually. I want to get the schools involved around the West Coast making dioramas of the history, and I'll put those on display in here as well. That will probably be phase 2 or part of phase 2. As for other people dropping in to help, it's sort of a one-man band thing, I suppose, and I sort of know what I want in my head, and just somebody would have to come in that knows the history really well and knows how I work, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, Alan, thank you so much for your time. Good luck with the project, and I'd love to check in with you perhaps in October or maybe next year when you crack on to phase 2.
Yes, absolutely. I would love to talk to you, Lucy.
Thanks, Alan. That was Alan Jennison, editor-publisher of Western Echo, currently working on a huge project, building a model of the West Coast throughout time. As he mentioned, phase 1 should be ready around mid-October, and then there'll be phase 2 and phase 3, getting schools involved as well. If you're after Alan's details, just get in touch with us, 0438 922 936 if you didn't catch them. And the Sunday's producer, Isabel, will be able to point you in the right direction, or just reach out to Western Echo is how you could find Alan also. The time